Hello everybody, welcome back to another Star Wars Destiny video. I was just looking at Reddit and saw a spoiler post of all the battlefields and plot cards from Legacies have finally been revealed. This is just a text post, so I'm just going to be going through the battlefields, giving my thoughts on them, as well as the plots. So first up in the battlefield list, some of these we've already looked at, so I'll kind of just like go over them fairly quickly. We'll skim over them, and some of them are new. So first up, we have the Outer Rim Outpost. This is from the starter, or one of the starters. Claim, gain one resource, and draw a card. So a better version of Moisture Farm, essentially. So if you claim it, you get a resource, and you get that extra card. Moisture Farm just lets you get a resource, and Moisture Farm is kind of like a safe battlefield. It was kind of like Mos Eisley Spaceport in Awakenings, where it didn't do a whole lot, and if it got claimed against you, it didn't do a whole lot for your opponent. Um, Moisture Farm gives them a resource, but this gives them a card and a resource, but it doesn't have a hugely devastating effect like, let's say, the Command Center, which has you mill two cards off the top, or any location that gives you shields, especially if you're playing against a Qui-Gon deck, is going to cause problems, so they'll claim the battlefield, get a shield, and ping some damage off of that. This is, again, a better version of Moisture Farm, and you get card draw on top of it. So it's probably a fairly safe battlefield still, but this is one you probably don't want to be claimed against you as much as, say, Moisture Farm. This Moisture Farm or Mos Eisley would give you resources, but this gives you your opponent card advantage too. So if you're using this, you still probably want to be claiming it fairly often. Next up, we have the Citadel Landing Zone. This is a common from Legacies. I believe it's from Scarif. I think I've seen a fairly blurry picture of it, but Scarif, so claim, reroll any number of your dice, then you may resolve one of your dice. So if you have no cards left to reroll, you have a couple blanks sitting in your pool, and you can go ahead, claim the battlefield, reroll those two dice, and then you get to choose one of those dice to resolve. I can see this being useful, again, like if you have no cards left in hand, or you have a die that is basically kind of like useless at that point, and you know it's just going to roll blanks. Let's say it's a die with multiple blanks on it. You can re-roll both dice and then choose one to actually get you some use out of. So the Citadel Landing Zone could be pretty fun. We have the Patronki Arena. I think I've talked about this. This is the Geonosis Arena. So claim, deal one indirect damage to yourself, and then deal one unblockable damage to an opponent's character, or just a character, but imagine you're going to be using this on your opponents. So you claim, you assign indirect damage to whatever character has the most health, maybe a character that has a bunch of shields, assign that indirect damage, and then hit your opponent for one unblockable damage. Interesting way of getting around, let's say, something, if character is shielded up and they have one health left, you can claim, you take a damage, they take an unblockable damage on their only character, and you win. I think the Separatist base might be better, though, because I think Separatist base just does the unblockable damage. This has you assign one indirect to yourself. However, once the Separatist base rotates out of standard, this may be the go-to for unblockable damage, because until the end of next year, both Awakenings blocks, the Awakenings block and the Legacies block will be legal and standard. After that, it'll be Legacies and whatever comes after that. So the Separatist base will be rotating out next year. Next up, we have the Imperial Palace. This is probably the one I'm excited about the most as far as battlefields. So Imperial Palace, it's an uncommon claim. Look at an opponent's hand and discard a card from it. So you got to look at their hand and discard whatever their best card is. You get rid of it. And I like that it doesn't just hit events, it doesn't hit just upgrades, it hits everything. So you get to look at their entire hand and choose one card. Doesn't matter if it's an event, an upgrade, a support, whatever it is, you discard it. If you're playing as Thrawn or new Kylo, two-player Kylo, you can claim, look at their hand, discard a card. Playing with Thrawn, you kind of just make a mental note of the resource costs of whatever else is in their hand that you didn't discard. Or if you're playing with Kylo, you just make a note of what colors they have. If you're playing against mono blue, it's going to be pretty simple because it's probably going to be mostly blue and maybe a little bit of gray. But if they're running, like a rainbow deck or something like that, you get that hand information of what's in their hand and what colors they have. Or with Thrawn, you get the information of you discard one and then see the resource costs of everything else. So the next time you activate him, you activate roll in and you just choose a number that you saw from claiming the battlefield and they discard that card as well. So that is the Imperial Palace, probably the one I'm excited about the most. Next up, we have Generator Trench, an uncommon claim. Turn a die to any side. So let's say you have no dice in your pool. Your opponent has a huge damage combo just sitting there. You can claim the battlefield and flip. Let's say they have one regular damage and a couple modifiers. You just flip that one range damage or that normal damage side to a blank, so they can't use it unless they re-roll or something like that. Can also be used to prevent an opponent from doing something with your dice and dealing damage to you based on the value of your dice. So your opponent has a force throw special out and you have a card or a die that's like a 3 melee damage or something like that, you can claim, flip your die to a blank, so when they do resolve the force throw special, you're not going to be taking any damage from it. So that is, again, the Power Generator Trench. That one could be pretty interesting. Next up, we have the Launch Deck. It's also an uncommon. Claim, remove one of your dice to deal indirect damage to an opponent equal to half of the value showing on it, rounded up. So if you have it's going to do at least one damage. So if you have a one side showing, you can remove that die, deal one indirect damage. And on bigger sides, it's going to do like 2 damage. If you pull out remove a 2 damage die, it's going to do one. It's going to do, let's say, like 2 damage if you remove a 4, and so on. So you remove a die, and you take half of that value and and your opponent assigns that as indirect damage. And that is the launch deck. And last up we have is the Arid Wasteland. This is from one of the starters. Claim, force an opponent to lose one resource. So we want to put this in a deck that you're going to be claiming very often. And your opponent, if they have any resources left, are going to be having one removed. Now, if your opponent is using all their resources in their turn, this battlefield won't have any real effect on you. They'll still get their 2 resources during the upkeep phase. But if they are saving resources for something later, you can claim it and have them remove a resource. All right, we're going to now move into the plots. So there are, let's see, 6 plots here, ranging between 1 and 3 points. So 3 being the high. I didn't expect plots to go above 3. Or we're just going to go through the plots and discuss what I think of them. Some of them we've already kind of discussed, so we'll just briefly discuss those ones. So first up, we have Espionage. This is uncommon. This is the one with Leia on it. After setup, each player discards the top card of their deck. Kind of risky, might not even be worth running, just because if you happen to mill off a card that you need, may kind of just mess up your entire game. If you build off one of, like, let's say you're running one of a certain weapon or something, and you mill that off, and now you won't be able to get that weapon unless you have ways to get that out of your discard pile. So next up we have Fortify, which is 2 points. It's an uncommon. After setup, give a character a shield. So for 2 points, you get a shield on one of your characters. Let's say you're playing a Qui-Gon deck, and you won the battlefield, and you don't want to go second, or you want to be on your battlefield. Let's say you want to be on the Obi-Wan's hut, just so you can claim and get shields constantly. This is a nice way to start Qui-Gon off with a shield if you have 2 character points that you didn't spend. Next up, we have Stolen Intel. This is 2 points. It's a common. After setup, draw a card. So you're running a 28-point team build. Throw in this card, and you get to start. You get to draw your hand, and then you draw an additional card. Gives you a nice card advantage right away, and only costs 2 points. And that is Stolen Intel. Next up, we have Taking Ground. We talked a little bit about this card earlier. It's 2 points. It's common, and add two to the value of your roll when rolling for the battlefield. So if you really want the battlefield and you have these extra points to spare, you get to add 2 to your roll. So if I roll a 5, it ends up being a 7 with this plot. So that is Taking Ground, and we've talked about that one already. Next up, we have Preemptive Strike, which is 3 points. It's uncommon. After setup, deal 2 indirect damage to an opponent. So if you have a 27-point team, you throw this in. Um, Before the game even starts, they're already having to assign 2 indirect damage to their characters. So that's a pretty powerful plot, having them starting the game with essentially 2 damage on them already. And finally, we have Profitable Connection. That's also 3 points. It's uncommon. This is the one with Lando on it, on the artwork anyway. And you start the game with 1 additional resource. If you were to do a team that has Lando on it and this Profitable Connections, you're going to be starting the game with 2 additional resources. So you can play something like a Master of the Council or a Bowcaster, um, basically turn 1. So Lando gives you 1 resource or 1 extra resource, and so does this plot. That's going to do it for this video. Remember, the giveaway for the Ultimate Guard deck box and 3 packs of Star Wars Destiny is still going on. That's going on through till the end of the month into early January. When that comes around, I'll be doing a random drawing, and the winner will get that deck box and those packs. There'll be a link in the description where you can check that out below. Again, I want to thank you all for watching. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.